As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. Listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries.
With the DJ scratch, that means we're live. I just want to take the intro of this week's episode to highlight something that happened on our previous stream. We had someone by the name of Brian call in. I don't know if I can use his last name or not, but it was Waylon.
It's not.
And he called in and he asked if this was the show for trans homosexual lawn care. Yeah, and then he used the F word as a homophobic slur in there. And so I wanted to kick off today's episode is that there's a couple of things here. Is that if you notice the thumbnail, you're going to see a very we're here and we're queer thumbnail. Just to throw handfuls of excrement at you, Brian. And then the second thing is that I kind of wanted to go on a little bit of a tirade because this guy genuinely believes in whatever political sphere he lives in. I promise it's on the conservative side of the political sphere, and I want to just point out some insanity here that this guy lives in this weird kind of quasi world that he thinks calling into a lawn care show is going to further his conquest that he's out there. First, one of the things you will hear talked about on this lawn care show a lot is about regulations and our own personal opinions of where they stand. That you're going to hear all kinds, and that can point us in different areas of the political spectrum. On the flip side of that is that Brian, I'm sure you think you are a conservative and you have zero clue what that means. And the reason why is that you're probably cheerleading on whoever that's in Congress right now that's working hard on that debt ceiling deal for you. And you want to know what your conservative debt ceiling people did? They lifted the debt ceiling until 2025 because no one, the Republicans and the Democrats do not give a shit about you. None of them are conservative. None of them are fiscally conservative. It's all a mind game to manipulate people like you to get it into your brain that you need to call into a lawn care show to start some kind of weird culture war with some grass guys. And if that doesn't point out the weird borderline personality disorder and the remaining PTSD from whoever molested you as a child, I apologize that happened to you. I'm genuinely sorry that someone did something terrible to you and you are still harboring ill feelings for it. I get it. There's lots of people out there that are suffering as a result of that. It is a crime that happened to you. However, the fact that you still hold on to it and have to call into a lawn care show to spill whatever it is that doesn't exist here but does exist in your brain because you just recently got your Master Gardener certificate on May the 15th from Wayne County Agriculture. Congratulations to you from the NC State Extension Office, but I promise that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. Your Master Gardener certificate, I could wipe my ass with, crumple it up into a sheet of paper, put it on the fire in my backyard because it means zero to me, buddy. Brian Whalen, you wouldn't last 15 fucking seconds in my place of business. You couldn't last 15 fucking seconds in any of the businesses I've ever worked for. You wouldn't make it in lawn care. You couldn't run an aerator on one of my crews. You couldn't make it on one of DeMay's crews. And if you were on Ray's crews, you'd probably catch a fucking trident somewhere to your midsection. So I want to repeat that you, sir, can go fuck yourself. Stay the fuck away from our show. And if I can't say that.
No, you can't. Can't say that.
That one I couldn't say because it was.
Let's go to the bullpen. All right.
Yeah. Bleep button there. And but anyway, I just want you to know that I genuinely hate you as a human being. I think you're spineless. I think you're soulless. I've reached out to your brother, by the way. Congratulations to him on his second child. Right. And thank you. I want to thank you, Brian, to share this message with your brother, to tell him I said thank you for your service. Because one of the things we have highlighted on here are the service people that are assets to our industry, and hopefully he can be one of those people that could be an asset, since clearly you are a fucking detriment to society, right? You offer nothing in the form of anything. I looked at your resume. It's basically shit. Congratulations on your criminal justice degree. I bet you feel like a real scholar earning that. And what's even more fascinating is your background in STEM education. STEM education. With a STEM education, you think somewhere in your created script going on in your head that you needed to call into a lawn care show called Thirsty Thursday, where we have beers and we talk about grass and share whatever drivel, completely made up psychopathy, borderline personality, schizophrenic, imaginative hallucination on our show. Go fuck yourself. And I mean that from the absolute bottom of my heart. You, sir, can fuck off. With that said, how about we check out this week's headlines?
Eat all them balls, Brian.
Did it come across correctly? Did I get it? Did I get it right?
I believe you did, Matt. I really believe you did.
I think you can sum it up in the way that, Brian, hey, around here we're mouth to mouth, and you know what? You can eat a dick. All right. Now, our first headline, where are we at here?
I didn't even have them pulled up. I was just
I'll go into the first one here. Companies to pay billions in forever chemical water pollution settlements. Oh, it's going to get bad, boys. This is the first. This is going to be Philip Morris 2.0. A 3M manufacturing facility in Cottage Grove, Minnesota in 2018. This is the big picture of it there. Major chemical producers have agreed to pay billions of dollars to settle claims from U.S. water providers over toxic, quote-unquote, forever chemicals and pollution. This is an Axios article, so it's why it matters. Okay. The settlements are a significant step forward in the effort to reduce potentially dangerous chemicals in the water system across the country. They also follow the EPA's tightening regulations on per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, which are a family of more than 12,000 chemicals, of which right now, this is editorial, this is my comment, the EPA only really cares about 30, but all 12,000 were pretty fucking bad. So just keep that in mind. The chemicals have contaminated thousands of drinking water systems around the country, and most people living in the United States have some amount of PFAS in their blood, according to the CDC. Health effects of the chemicals are still being studied, but exposure to certain kind of PFAS have linked to adverse health effects in humans and animals, including increased risk for kidney and testicular cancer. Hear that, Brian? Testicles.
Chomp.
No, yeah, that's right. There's let's see here. Chemours, DuPont, and Corteva said Friday they reached a $1.19 billion settlement with water providers around the country. Water providers had alleged that the companies were responsible for the environmental pollution from firefighting foams they manufactured that contained PFAS. Though the companies denied the allegations, the settlement would resolve hundreds of lawsuits against them that were consolidated into a federal district court for South Carolina, which must finalize the settlement for it to take effect. All right, so they're talking about basically these water systems. They go on to talk about the adverse effects and how they're going to get things back. But fellas, I took out a little bit of issue with the way the article was written. Does this really stop what's already happened? I mean, maybe people will get wise and start to clean these things up, but 12,000 different PFAS compounds that we know about currently. Again, the EPA is only testing for 30 of them that they're really.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know where they settled in on this 30. That'd be a good topic for us to dive into in a future show. But why only 30 out of 12,000? I'm not sure. Maybe those are what's just been studied and known to cause human health effects. But does this change anything? Let me ask. Does 1.19 billion?
Look, this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like, okay. Where we have shifted as a culture is that fear is the motivator for everything, right? And what everyone loves is a good bloodletting, right? And so all this is a bloodletting where we can point at a corporation and say, you are the boogeyman. We bloodletted you and ha. But it doesn't really solve the underlying problem, right? It's like the whole argument with glyphosate. We'll scare the holy shit out of you about it. We'll sue the holy hell out of Bayer. We'll drag them through the mud, and we'll talk about World War II Germany, and Bayer was a German company, and they were willing participants of the Holocaust, and that's where glyphosate come from, and that's why they're trying to kill us all. Here's your $25 billion lawsuit you lost. But in reality, it's not really solving anything, right? If Bayer's going to pay that off, and the body of evidence with glyphosate isn't even there anyway for them to be going after them. But it's a boogeyman that gets painted into this corner, and they have to pay their way out. Here's another one. It's another boogeyman. They get painted in the corner. They're going to pay their way out, but we're not really doing anything about the underlying issues. That, as a society, is a problem that we operate in right now. It's a major, major problem. So while this may make whoever feel good about it, your average, 50% of people are going to feel great about it. The rest of us in the real world are going to look at it and be like, okay, but what are we going to do?
Exactly. The damage has already been done. The bell can't be unrung. So $1.19 billion. I'm trying to figure out where money solves this issue. And I go back to, and I said the Philip Morris thing because, okay, hey, there's obviously there, in those cases, right? I don't know if they're foretelling that there's going to be this massive health crisis down the road because of PFAS, right? So, all that tobacco money got distributed to the states, Ray, so that they could pay, increase Medicaid coverage and things like that for all the people that were ripping cigs, right? And certainly that's gone down, right, over the last 20 years or whatever. But are we going to look back 20 years from now and be like, hey, man, you remember when they settled, when Corteva and all those guys, DuPont settled back in 23, and now everybody there's less PFAS being consumed in water systems? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think so. I don't think so either.
I don't think so either, because you see, PFAS is not only in the drinking water. PFAS is in the oil and waterproof papers that are used to wrap processed and packaged foods. Okay, so that's not the only, water's not the only place. However, I can tell you, for me, in my own state, while I'm waiting for my useless fucking government to finish pointing fingers at the relevant parties, I went out and I put my drinking water on a reverse osmosis system. Okay? Because all of the lawsuits, accusations, regulations, whatever, are not going to get this PFAS out of the drinking water. It's already there. My question is, since this is fact, what can we do to, moving forward, ensure that people consume as little as possible of this? And like for myself, I was on the Zoom the other night, and somebody noticed, hey, Ray, you're talking to us, and you just consumed about 64 ounces of water.
Well,
and that's like about half of my daily consumption. So there.
I just think that it's probably going to be, if it's not already, a massive public health crisis, right? Over the long term, playing out in very super slow motion. Here's the thing: is that we've just discovered this, or have paid mind to it, right? It's been going on for a long fucking time. right? So you can sit there and say whatever you want about it, but $1.19 billion, bottom line, doesn't change anything. Matt, anything different to say?
Nope.
If you got them.
Yeah, and take us into this next one too about the solar presentation.
Ooh, this is interesting. This is an interesting topic. I want to get some takes on you, but I thought this was a good one to kind of highlight a little bit of what's going on here, at least in the Midwest, right? So, out of Escanaba, Michigan State University Extension bioenergy educator Charles Gold was in Escanaba Tuesday to speak on how agricultural practices and solar developments can coexist. But his presentation was met with hostility from a vocal group of residents that's opposed to all forms of utility-scale solar projects, right? So these are solar panels that are being put up in farmland areas, rural areas, right, with the idea of green energy behind it. All right, so the article continues. Quote, I'm coming from the standpoint that land should never be used exclusively for solar power production. So what I mean by that is that we don't put solar arrays out just to harvest the sun's energy for power production. That land is too valuable, said Gould, who comes from a dairy farming background. Gould presented 4 primary ways that solar farms can be used in conjunction with solar power generation, ways that enhance both practices. The first agricultural practice he discussed was grazing and forage production. His main benefit for grazing around animals around solar panels is the animals prevent grasses and weeds from growing over the panels, thus blocking light. Grazing is also one of the cheapest ways to manage the land beneath the solar array, with the recent study showing it cost $1.55 per kilowatt hour direct current per year to graze sheep at the solar site, compared to $1.51 for turf grass, $1.75 for gravel, or $2.23 for native vegetation. Solar producers typically budget between 50 cents and $1.80 per kilowatt hour per year for vegetation management. The end result is not a manicured lawn like you would get with a bush hog, but you would get a typical grazed pasture look. And solar developers don't care as long as the weeds and the grasses don't grow above the bottom lip of that solar panel array. They're absolutely just fine with it. So they go on to talk a little bit about different ways that they can do this, right? This is becoming a huge issue here in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, where these solar developers are coming in. They're paying a lot of money for farmers to take prime farmland and basically say, hey, listen, we're going to put solar up on it, and you're going to be out this farmland. Now, there's been some interesting approaches, right? Like they talked about with, grazing, with turf, with gravel, wildflowers, things like that, like native vegetation, those approaches. But guys, I wanted to get your take on, and like I said, you go through, I drive through rural Ohio in all directions from Columbus a lot. We're in the center of the state. So I'm in, the northern part of the state, southern part of the state, all over the place. And you see these signs everywhere of, no solar on prime farmland. And the stories I hear from farmers in these areas is that they're getting offered ridiculous sums of money, right? And part of it is that there are farmers and the solar farm folks know this, right? That they can go out to, certain landowners, instead of having to cobble together, 5 different plots that might have like 20 acres each to get 100 acres. They're going to the farmer that's got 400 or 500 acres, right, in one plot. And they can take all that land and develop it all for solar. So it's a lot easier for them to do that in certain locations. So it's becoming an issue here in the Midwest. I'm curious though, from a land management perspective, are you guys in favor of this in agricultural areas? And number 2, if you had it just off the cuff, if you had to manage these sites, if somebody said, Matt, Ray, you guys got to figure out what the fuck you're going to put in between all these solar arrays, what would you guys do just off the cuff?
God, I don't even know.
Okay.
That's why I like asking hard questions.
I know what I do.
Pray away.
I make sure,
Brian,
that the area around these solar arrays would be dirt 12 months out of the year. I am sorry, but when we're talking about solar arrays, we are talking about very delicate equipment. I'm talking about power cables. I'm talking about the glass panels. I'm talking about the aluminum or steel support structures for these panels. And the last thing I would want next to something that costly and that delicate would be 800 to 1,000 pound Boyd, which was, by the way, my grandfather's black and white bull, ambling along and not realizing that he's 1,000 pounds and can knock over, full-grown trees if he turns the wrong way. So I just foresee all manner of catastrophe. But I can tell you that here's the argument, is that we are taking land out of agricultural production because, for one reason or another, we are exporting that agricultural production to countries and locations with less regulatory oversight. You see, that's the bottom line. That's why farmers don't produce crops anymore or produce anymore, because it's less onerous to, say, grow that crop in Brazil, or let China do it, or let Africa do it, or let somewhere in South America do it for us. But this is my question to everybody. Rather than just protesting the end effect or the end result, which are the growers selling out to these solar producers, ask ourselves, why the fuck aren't these farmers growing food? Why not?
Well, that's the thing.
Why aren't they?
It's this.
Why aren't they?
Because they're caught in the middle of getting offered a check of generational wealth to give up all or some of their land, right? Or continue to grow food. And there's a number of them, not critical mass, but there's a number of them that it's becoming to be an issue, right? So I don't know, it's something to keep an eye on here. It's a super local, hyper local issue, because I said it's not everywhere, but where it's happening, it's a big fucking deal. Like Escanaba, Michigan. I don't read the news.
Why can't we focus this on non-arable land? Like, why can't we do this in deserts?
Well, I had this question too about, I don't know the answer to that question. I'll be honest. I haven't researched it. I was just having this conversation with somebody in a rural area this past week. And I said, we talked about, with the, what the recent grants that are going to come up for the conservation areas, right? For USDA. Why not those areas, right? So instead of saying, hey, we're going to put this in the conservation program for USDA and pay you money back from the government to not farm your land, right, and conserve this area, instead, guess what? We're going to hook you up with a solar supplier that's going to pay you one time, and you're just going to have a solar array on your ground now, right? So I don't know, Matt. That would be interesting. That would be an interesting question to learn,
because in prime growing conditions, prime farmland, now you're having to. It's the invasive species thing that has me like in my head trying to think like what can you grow there that's going to help mitigate that, right? You can have all the sheep in there grazing that you want, but of course they're going to pick around certain things they don't want, and so. I just see it turning into a disaster. However it is you choose to go about this, if it's intended to be left alone and just let some animals come in and graze it, right? Especially in prime growing regions. Shift that to non-prime growing regions like desert, and where you don't have to worry about obstructions. You don't have to worry about invasive species. Maybe you get a snake that crawls up on it and bakes to death, and everything's going to be A-okay. The world will continue on, and no one will even know it's there because no one spends time there. It's bizarre to me. To be honest, I just don't like it. It makes me really uncomfortable.
Matt, this, I asked the same question here in Hawaii of, okay, why are we building entire subdivisions in the part of the island that literally gets 20 inches or less of rain per year? Why are we doing that? Because in my logical and oversimplified brain, I'm thinking that would be the place where, you have your solar arrays on that land and you string a cable to the other side of the island where there's more than 20 inches of water per year as rain, and you transmit the electricity to that part of the island, and you use the rest for a large-scale desalination plant. That's, how my mind works anyway. But
all I go back to in this is I just hear ringing in my ears every time I see this come up as an issue. I hear Matt Martin talking about biochar and the circular economy and in green initiatives. And I'm not against green initiatives personally, but I think there's a lot of sharks in the water there, and they give no fucks about any of the platitudes that they try to stand on. And so anyway, without getting too editorial or whatever, hey, fuck these people. Go to Goldsboro, North Carolina, and build a solar farm out there in Goldsboro. Be a good spot for it, don't you think?
Yeah, I'll give you an address to put it in. I wanted to highlight this here. This is coming out of Colorado State University. It says new research shows practices from the past will be the key to future soil carbon solutions, and I'll kind of run through it quickly here, but it starts off saying that regenerative agriculture is going to be the future. But as you get deeper into this, it turns out, no, not as we hear regenerative agriculture defined, because what happens is that soil as with a growing medium on it has a finite amount of carbon that is going to sequester. So what they found is that with cover cropping and tillage and using that as kind of a method of maintaining fields, you can reduce and then restore, soil organic carbon, right? And so that turns out to be a more effective way of growing soil organic carbon. Now, if you want to read that study, I went ahead and linked it, and you'll find it in the show notes. And there's a couple things to highlight on that. Is so one is that when we're talking about restoring soil organic carbon, there's been another new study that has come out that is differentiating between particulate organic carbon and then mineral associated organic carbon, and those being like subsets of soil organic carbon, right? And some of those are actually having better improvements on long-term carbon storage than others. And like, for instance, mineral associated organic carbon. So if you think about that, that would be something that's going to be more of a fresh organic matter source, right? Meaning that there still is a mineral content that can be released as it is digested by the soil microbiology, versus a particulate organic carbon, which would be something that is already digested to the point that it's not going to degrade any further. Therefore, it's not really doing anything except sitting there, right? And that is going to have less impact on the soil's ability to store carbon. So anyway, it starts to get real deep into the weeds here. But the point is that, when we see headlines like this, that a method of the past is going to be the key to the future soil carbon solutions, you got to read a little deeper into the details on it, because this is going to be the headline that you see on Joe Rogan or whoever else that says, why are we using pesticides? It doesn't make any sense. They're killing everybody. Fertilizers kill everything. And then when you actually look at this, you find out actually that's not the case at all, that this is fighting for. In fact, it is not taking away from fertility at all. So, in fact, we would still be using fertility. We would still be using herbicides and pesticides. It's just we might be intercropping more often, or we might be increasing or decreasing from time to time no-till, right? So we may go 3 years of no-till and then 1 year of heavy tillage or medium tillage or light tillage. And that would be the way to better manage consistent increasing levels of carbon sequestration back into our soils, right? So again, I just want to highlight out there that what you see is not always what you're getting. And then I went ahead and threw one more in there because so many people think that what I'm talking about is bullshit. And this is fast agricultural topsoil reformation after complete topsoil loss. And effectively what they looked at was just complete and total topsoil removal. And then you had sand, right? And then how long did it take sand to turn into pure topsoil? what they found is that it only took 26 years until you had topsoil from just pure sterile sand. And the way to actually increase that was through mineral fertilization. So conventional fertilization was one of the fastest ways to bring that up. No, go ahead. That's all I was going to say.
I'm going to tell you a trick. Okay. So funny you say that. Okay. So that's actually published research, right? I will give you something we do in practice, right? So if we mill off a field, right? So we take a phrase mower and mill off the top, I don't know, half or so inch, 3/4 of an inch of the sand-based field. That stuff will sit there. So it's just organic material, right? A little bit of organic material, for maybe 3%, something like that, 4% tops, and then all sand. The rest of it's all sand. So high carbon, no nitrogen, very little nitrogen. You know what we do to that pile? Sit there and drop urea on it, mix it all together, and let it sit there for about 6 months. When you come back, that stuff tests fucking perfect as topsoil.
It's a strange thing. And if anybody has a leaf litter pile in their backyard or something, and it's taking up a monumental amount of space, seriously, go put a bag of urea on it, and your mind will explode when you watch what happens to that pile. So take
carbon
one pile,
put
a bag of urea on it, and then the other one, and leave it alone. Don't put anything on it, and then watch what happens at various speeds. And you're going to come back to us and be like, oh yeah, that's right. One of the things to highlight from it that I wanted to read out loud out here was that soil C content was low in non-fertilized soils. Soil C content in fertilized soils was significantly higher. So if you want higher C content in your soils, actually applying mineral fertilizer was the way to increase that quickly as possible. So there you go. For the organic high horse, but we will continue to point out the hypocrisy of it, that, again, one does not make the other exclusively true or untrue, right? There is balance in everything in life. There's multiple ways to get there, and using things in conjunction rather than vilifying the other is oftentimes an incredible answer, right? And then there's published research around that too. So anyway, just wanted to highlight that. That being said, hey, DeMay, we've got a special episode today where we're just shitting all over the sea sucker who called into our show on Thursday. So who else can we shit on because our egos are too big to be contained in our respective houses with this week's Joe Knows Turf?
Can I ask you, are you Matt? Hopefully you're not afraid of heights at this point.
Oh, actually, I am afraid of heights. No, we're gonna stomp all over this. I am afraid of heights. Keep going, DeMay.
I'd like you to climb up on this 20-foot extension ladder and punch down with me for about the next 10 minutes. Can you do that for me?
Sure, I can. I've got a pretty significant reach. I'm 6'4". I'm a tall guy, right? I've got a good reach.
You do have those gorilla-like arms.
I do.
You get long arms.
I do.
All right. So listen, tonight, I want to preface this with something here. There was a video that was taken down yesterday. I think it was Backwoods Lawn Care, and it was him talking about us with the Jeremy, the Greener Lawn video, right? And I just want to say that, listen, regardless of what people think about what we say or what we do in this segment, the point is that it causes people at the very minimum to question what they're doing, right? And that's all we're trying to do, right? Is this the right thing? Is there a way for me to do better? And at the very best, they're implementing better and safer practices. You know what? We'll do better. We've committed ourselves. We're going to try and do better about saying what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Now, this one might not be quite down that road, but we'll see what we can do. We'll see if we can bring it home here to a take-home message that everybody can get behind and feel good about, like we're ending a Disney movie, because, listen, this show's all the way gay tonight, Brian. All right, now let's go ahead and play that video, J-Pink.
Up here in the mountains. Now, overall, when I'm looking at the grass blades, they appear to be brown, or the tissue is just completely dead. This could be from one of two things. It can either be from lack of water.
I can think of a lot more than that.
Or we've had the grass die out from last season, and over the winter, it's just been decaying. It could be that these mow clippings weren't mowed properly, and the grass just lied down and died and did not decompose. Once the tissue dies,
What? Wait, listen. I'm telling you, with whatever irregularities that you hear, I need you to wait because it will continue to get better. Now, listen, for those of you on our audio format, we're visiting tonight with a gentleman known as the Pest and Lawn Ginger. He's very well known to us. He was the subject of one of our gobblers here several months back when he tried to sell MSM in an affiliate link in the comments of his video, and subsequently took that down because, well, we really did shit all over him for doing that. Now, this video is entitled Repair an Ugly Lawn Using 5 Easy Steps. Hazy brown grass, dead spots, lawn fungus, underwatered. So this video came out within the last, 2-3 weeks, something like that. And if you don't know, Pest and Lawn Ginger's out in Utah, and this video looks like it was shot sometime probably in April and then edited and put out here fairly recently. So we're going to look at what he's got going on here as he evaluates this lawn. So go ahead and roll that beautiful bean.
Aren't going to be able to revive it and make it green again, which means all of this is going to need to be removed. Now, when we get into the tissue itself, some of it is gray, which typically means that last year it died and it's just been sitting here for a long time. Now, the Ginger's been slaying lawns for about 20 years now, and I've got some exciting news for you guys. I'm creating a space called the Lawn Masters Academy to help you at home be able to slay that lawn. The Lawn Masters Academy is designed to put a method to the madness of diagnosing your lawn.
Just real quick, if anybody out there would like to gift us a membership to this, I promise we will do it justice. I'm just going to throw that out there. We will 100% do it justice. And yeah, that's all.
Lawn. Whether you're a beginner lawn care person or an expert, there's something for you. I'm hoping to have the Academy up and launched in the next 30 days. If you want to get on the wait list, go to lawnmastersacademy.com and put in your email address. Now, this is what I'm talking about when we talk.
I thought at my last DE&I training, they said, don't use the word master anymore. Maybe again, you didn't get that. All right, play.
Talk about not mowing properly. It means the plugger was either in the mower and they were attempting to mulch, or the bag was full and it was just kind of spilling out. Now, this kind of material at our altitude, which I'm at about a mile high, just under a mile high where we're at, we don't have the same decomposition that you're going to get at sea level. So this grass cannot be left this way. I'm just kind of walking along and I'm...
What? Is that a function of barometric pressure? Atmospheric ocean concentrations?
Ray, listen,
where are we going with this?
I know Ray has talked about the ionosphere before because that's the only place besides the Concorde. Otto is the only other person that goes there. But Ray, could you please tell me, with your science and physics background, in what way? And listen, yes, we are ripping on him because this is it's a statement that is either completely erroneous on purpose and he knows it, or he's just trying to sound smart. And listen, it's okay to say, hey, listen, like this shit didn't break down, whatever. Their mower sucks. Like that's probably more the answer than altitude.
Yeah. Because here's what I know about decomposition of organic matter is that it happens, and it happens at the rate that it normally happens, irregardless of what altitude you're at on Earth. Exception to that is, say this lawn is at the top of Mount Everest and there's permafrost on it 12 months out of the year. Then I can see decomposition not happening, but then...
Yeah, green boots is still there, so, there's maybe an element of truth in altitude.
Yeah.
If I'm seeing a place where it is otherwise warm enough to have normal grass and normal trees growing, I have to call nonsense on the concept that the altitude in that neighborhood in Utah is too high for decomposition to occur. I just have to, because the oxygen concentration and the CO2 concentrations in that higher altitude is still within the physiological range where organic matter cycling will occur. Okay? So There, I said my piece.
All right, J-Pink, go to 5 minutes 11 seconds for me, please. Slide it on over there. Don't slide it in, Bryden.
And at first, it just looks like blobby patches, right? But when you start looking at the patterns...
Okay, before we dive into what he's about to say here, at any point with a customer, Matt, you've probably done tens of thousands of site visits. Ray, probably thousands because you deal with more elite. Have you ever said the words blobby patches in your lawn?
Only when looking in the mirror.
Don't hate yourself, Matt. Love yourself.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Play the video.
When we get on top of it, we have a ring right there. And if you look at these, they all look like little horseshoes, all connected. Every single one of them. Now, these ring spots are commonly associated with a nasty disease called necrotic ring spot.
Okay, he's right. This does look like NRS, right? It's a pretty classic year after look if you haven't done anything to repair it. But now let him go into the why, Kyle.
Necrotic ring spot, we know causation is overstimulation with fertilizers such as urea, and it's spreadable through lawn aeration. And these neighborhoods I'm in are notorious for doing lawn aeration because we have so much clay in our soil that gets compacted over the wintertime. Now, necrotic ring spot demonstrates itself through the grass blades, but it is not the disease in the grass. It's a soil-borne disease. So no matter if we just scrape all the dirt out or not, if proper care measures aren't taken, it's gonna come back. Next step is our water saturation test. Now, my favorite tool to use is an AMS soil probe.
Pause.
Yeah.
So listen. Here's our Joe Knows Turf for tonight, right? I listen. You know, this is a little bit of you cast the bob route. You see what kind of bites you're going to get in the first part of this video. But tonight's take home, right, is about necrotic ring spot, specifically on Kentucky bluegrass, which this is what he's on right now, and the other part too. If you're watching on YouTube and you're seeing what the lawn looks like right here in this freeze frame right here. And he's talking about desiccated plants and things like that, things that weren't watered correctly. He is in a completely different climate than what we are here in the Midwest. But I will tell you that this is what Kentucky bluegrass looks like coming out of winter. Okay, you know it's gonna go dormant, right? It's gonna have a straw-colored texture and color to it. So that's all the stuff he's saying is just to scare you. That's or he just doesn't know. I don't know. I'm not sure what the correct answer is there. What I will tell you though is necrotic ring spot. Okay, let's talk about this real quick. Ray, few things I can tell you about necrotic ring spot. One, pH matters. Okay, of your soil, and using a good soil test to ascertain what your soil pH is, because if it is above 7, there's a higher likelihood that you're going to see that disease. Right. Other thing that we know too, Ray. Really interesting thing is that I think it's 54 parts per million is the critical value. So soil manganese with a malic 3 extractant below 54 parts per million, you have a higher incidence of necrotic ring spot, right? And summer patch in your turf. So these two that we see, okay? So what he's saying about urea-based fertilizers enhancing that, I'm not so sure in the aeration of spreading it, also not so sure. I would focus on best management practices of this disease. Aeration can actually be a good tool because when we're spraying fungicide to prevent this disease, right, there's usually 2 apps of a strobilurin. So azoxystrobin is the most common one you'll see used, right? Aeration can actually be a good tool, at least in some form or fashion, because the lawn area that he's using is really only affecting maybe 2 to 3% of the soil surface, right? You can use that, though, as a tool to get the fungicide down into the root zone, which is really where it needs to be to prevent this disease. So I like he did what we've been so appropriately criticized for is he said, hey, it's got necrotic ring spot. You should do something about that. But he doesn't say what the hell to do, right? So manage strategies. pH, number 1. Soil manganese, number 2. Those are 2 cultural things that you can do. If you're going to spray for it, you got to spray early. You got to spray when when your soil temperatures are getting up in that 60 to 65 degree range at a 2-inch depth, you're going to make one app, and then you're going to make a second app 28 days after that. You've got to irrigate that down into the soil so it can get in there, and any means that you can do to help that get in there. So whether that's through a wetting agent of some type or potentially also using aeration as a tool to do that. So, Ginja, your 5 steps are good, but if you don't tell us what the hell to do and how to fix it, I don't know, brother. All right.
I don't know.
Hang on, just real quick on the clay comment and compaction coming out of winter. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but are freezing and thawing cycles not one of the most beneficial things to help with that? Or did I completely mess it up?
As far as like fracturing the soil?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You know,
so the natural theoretically coming out of winter, that would be like that would be the greatest moment of soil aerification you're probably going to experience all year.
100%.
Okay, just curious because I was taught the opposite in that video, and it kind of contradicted everything that I've previously been taught. Can I
tell you what your problem is?
Yes.
I'd like to diagnose your problem right now.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, you haven't signed up for Lawn Master Academy.
I actually posted in the Discord. I did. I already did sign up. I'm looking for the early bird discount. What else? Are we done here? We're gonna keep going.
No, that's it. So thank Ginja. Let's blow him a kiss. Let's say goodnight.
Hide your kids. All right, let's check out this week's Burns.
SerialDomesticAbuser.com, and that's not the kind of breakfast cereal. I'm talking SERIAL, domesticabuser.com. You think that? No, I'm sorry. You can slip it in there. Sheila has domestically abused people before. She seems like it.
Yeah.
You know that she rear-ended Ray and ruined his greens mower once? That bitch.
Oh man, just
that was after he broke up with her. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say a couple notes on the Burns here. Fertilizer prices are going back up. What we see here is we're getting a little bit of an uptick in where we have seen some cooling off. Now, look, are we going to continue to see the input commodities climb? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be anything insane. And there's a couple of reasons why. First off, China has missed their mark on U.S. purchases by a metric mile right now. And where normally, they are hauling in grain just by the vessel, just left and right, huge orders. And then, of course, we get a few surprise tender orders out of India. That, which has transpired over the last 5 years, is just basically gone away. It's gone to zero. And what has happened is that they've gone to Brazil and started buying from Brazil. And a lot of reasons why is that we had a really bad year for wheat, right? Real bad wheat harvest. Brazil and many regions of South America had really large wheat harvest. In fact, some record grain harvests were going on out of there. And I believe it was their second corn crop came in really good too. So anyway, China just, making their business decisions that they have to make where we were expected to have all that bought here. And then, of course, we were overgrowing a lot of grain for a couple of reasons. Like, for instance, we thought we were going to have biofuel for airplanes coming online. And unfortunately, that's at about 300% high on the dollar mark there. So that really didn't catch wind. And so the corn that we were going for that, and of course our other grains that we grow have been shifted away to South America, has left people with a lot of acres and no place to put it, right? So and a lot of harvested commodity contracts that are not being filled, and so it's like, boy, what do we do? And the whole supply versus demand thing, you got an excess supply and you've got very, 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 very little demand. It's going to fall. Now, there's some why we're probably going to see a little bit of an uptick here is that I don't know if you saw the news out of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia said, yeah, we're going to slash production again since we've got summer coming up. Everybody loves to drive during the summer, and we've got inflation prices, so people probably aren't going to be flying a whole lot. And even if they do, we'll catch them there too. So we're gonna cut production just to eke out as much as we can. And good luck. And of course, you're going to see fertilizer prices move somewhat in line with oil prices. So, not shocking to see a little bit of an uptick here. Are we going to be running up to $1,100 a ton urea commodity? Probably not. I see prices all over the United States on urea right now, from bagged urea for turf, TNO, ranging anywhere from $18 a bag to $30 a bag, $33 a bag in some areas in the Midwest right now. Still seeing, and it is what it is. But again, are we gonna climb up there to 1,100 where you're going to be paying $45, $50 a bag for urea? No, you're not. You probably still will be on higher cash value commodities. So like sulfate of potash is still going to be incredibly expensive because potash prices are still at monumental record highs right now, and because of that, I say record highs. Compare over the last 5 years. Yes, they are at record highs. Phosphates are still really expensive in that vein as well. Just a few years ago, we were buying potash at $270, $250 a ton, and we're still cranking in right now $700-800 a ton all day long. And then, you've got, for like sulfate of potash, you've got commodity plus premium, right? And so you're likely not getting sulfate of potash in for anything cheaper than, probably somewhere close to $1,500, $1,800, maybe even $2,000 a ton right now. So again, nothing to really get freaked out and alarmed about, but just with the natural ebbs and flows and some of the geopolitical chess movements that are taking place right now, it is what it is. And so there you go. That's my intake on it. Have y'all heard, seen, or witnessed anything to the contrary that leads you to believe that it's about to go off the charts again?
I haven't seen it. I think what I do see is that our fertilizers are at the pandemic and war prices, and I don't see them coming down anytime soon. They go up and they don't come back down. That's what I'm seeing, because I'm looking at something like 4600 Matt, non-stabilized 4600. That's over $50 a bag where I'm at.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is the transport cost for you, right? Because fuel prices are still freaking high, and where I've seen a lot of transport costs go down, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to turn something from a really high commodity into a really cheap commodity, right? So we've seen softening on the commodity prices, but if you're still having to transport or truck it, like for instance, I'll give you an example of transport costs, right? Like I don't know what the mileage is. In fact, let me look this up right here. Nashville, Tennessee to we'll say what's a city in Oklahoma? You're muted, by the way, DeMay. We'll say Norman, Oklahoma. You're right there near Oklahoma City, right? That's 682
Norman, Oklahoma.
miles.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's crazy is that's only 682 miles, right? Normally, we'll say that's going to cost you $1,800 for a full truckload into Oklahoma, because that's not a busy lane. Like shipping into Nebraska is not a busy lane from where we are. That truckload right now is $3,500, $4,000 all day long. So where that's anywhere else, if it went north or south of me, 682 miles, no problem. But that's a $1,800 truckload all day long. Going west with it, now all of a sudden it's $3,000, $3,500. What's crazy is that you could even send it to Iowa cheaper than you can into Oklahoma and Nebraska right now. Doesn't make any sense. It is what it is. And that's why you're going to see like NOLA urea, right? So New Orleans, Louisiana, out of the Gulf right there, which is where a lot of our commodity urea is going to come from. In one place, say like in Atlanta, Georgia, maybe $18 a bag, versus in Oak City, all of a sudden is going to be $32 a bag. And a lot of that has to do with just your tonnage of transport costs. Man, putting on rail right now is still under a little bit of pressure when they were poised to strike, and our most union friendly president of all time stepped in and said, well, we're not going to let you do that. Right, driver? Isn't that what he did? Just want to point out, that both sides fuck around and find out with that bullshit game there anyway. So it is what it is. You got any input on that, DeMay? I talked a lot. I'm sorry.
No, the only thing I was going to say, just from a tactical level that I'm seeing, or that I would tell our listeners to consider, is it might not be time yet, but by August, September, there's going to be some long inventory sitting in warehouses all over the place at turf supply houses of fertilizer that was purchased sometime between the end of 2020 all the way up through sometime last year that hasn't sold. And it might be like 6 bags here. It could be 60 bags. It could be 600 bags, right? But I would start having conversations with your sales reps and saying, hey, tell me about your long inventory list. What do you got sitting in there? What do you want to make a deal on, right? And I'm telling you, especially as it gets towards inventory time at the end of the year, some of these guys and gals will be willing to make a deal just to get something off their floor, just to get the fuck out of there, even if they have to take a loss on it or sell it at their cost, right? So consider that, right? And it might not be the stuff you want, but it might be stuff you could make work, right? And use it at a better price than maybe what you thought you were going to use. So just think about that and take it under advisement. I always love, Matt, Ray, it's one of my favorite things to do is to ask everybody for their scratch and dent list.
Hey,
they love to make deals.
My refrigerator.
You know what?
Cans without a label.
Ryan,
yeah.
I do that all the time. No, in fact, it goes the other way around in that my vendors ask me, hey, Ray, can you use this stuff? And it's often prefaced with the line, I'm asking you because I don't fucking trust any of the other yo-yos out there with it. Okay, that I've literally been told that a number of times when they're about to hand off some long inventory or other product to me. They say, Ray, I'm giving it to you because I don't fucking trust anybody else with it. Period. I mean, they're going to find 1,000,001 ways to F it up, so they rather give it to somebody that knows what it is and can read and follow instructions, for example.
Without a doubt. Our other burn here is, we got a wastewater treatment facility and a big ass wind turbine on it. And turns out it went a little bit out of control. A broke turbine was set free spinning by strong winds. This is out on Deer Island, and was spotted around 10 a.m. by someone walking through the public access area near Deer Island wastewater treatment plant. The person noticed the turbine was spinning quickly and had something dangling from one of its blades. They called 911, and emergency workers got out there, and it had been out of service since April 2022. The damn thing has been out of service for over a year. Lord have mercy. How many turbines do we have out there that are just non-functioning? They're spinning, but they ain't doing shit. Although it's too soon to speculate on what happened, it appears that this morning strong winds broke the braking mechanism and the turbine began to free spin. The contractor was called to fix the 600-kilowatt turbine, which stands 100 feet tall. By 3:30 Monday, the turbine was successfully stopped and locked back into place. They kept it closed just out of an abundance of caution, and there you go. What happens when a solar panel, when it's supposed to stop feeding energy into a battery, all of a sudden that overcurrent protection just stops, and then all of a sudden you continue pumping energy to an already full battery? What does one of those lithium ion fires look like? Oh, nothing to worry about. You just put a little water on it and it goes out quickly, right? No, it doesn't.
Hey,
So
it don't.
yeah. Anyway, we'll check out this week's returns. DeMay, how about you take this one with penetrants versus retainers, understanding wetting agent claims and the science behind them?
Yeah, this is an interesting little bit of a summarization of research that was done at the University of Arkansas here, a guy named Daniel O'Brien. And so this is at the USGA Green Section Record, which you can subscribe to. I think it's a really, really good, useful tool for research and things that are coming out right now, mostly in golf, but there's a lot of things that kind of cross over here. And we're going to talk about those here. So the key takeaways in this article. So there are no established standards between what defines a quote unquote penetrant or a retainer wetting agent. And each manufacturer can apply those labels to whichever products they choose. That sounds familiar. Research on sand-based putting greens found no significant differences in volumetric water content between the penetrant and the retainer wetting agents. At the active ingredient level, wetting agents demonstrated the ability to function as both a penetrant and a retainer in response to changes in environmental conditions. Expectations for how a wetting agent will function should be based on data and experience, not marketing terminology. Site-specific factors such as weather conditions, cultural management practices, and organic matter content play an important role in wetting agent performance and need to be considered to maximize the effectiveness of any product. So, J-Pink, slide down here to figure 2. Okay. Figure 2. And so, gentlemen, here's what they did. Next one. Keep going. Deeper, Brian. Deeper.
Yes.
Oh, that's it. Oh, God. Damn near hit my pancreas. All right. Okay, so can't say pancreas.
Well,
for those of you that don't know, in Brian's world, the pancreas is an erogenous zone. So, just saying. All right, fuck you. All right, so here's what they did, gentlemen, is they took these different wetting agents. You'll see these in the top right-hand corner of the graph that are described by the companies that sell them as either penetrants or retainers, right? And you'll see the different markings there on the graph. And then from there, what they did is that they took basically in the 3x5 replicated trial plots that they had, they were taking TDR samples. So the TDR is a device that measures volumetric water content, right? So you stick it in the ground at a specific depth, right? And it's got rods that attach to it that go down to said depth and will give you a percentage of that volume of soil that is actually water, right? So what we should see here, right, according to the marketing material, is that we should see water deeper with the penetrants and probably closer to the top with the retainers. But as you sit there and look across all these, right, the groupings are pretty similar, right, from a statistical standpoint. So again, the thing I wanted to highlight here is that number one, there's a lot of marketing out there that suggests that, hey, and Matt, we can talk about this because Matt's at the product level and he understands this and sees this. And Ray has seen and heard a lot of fucking pitches in his day about the next latest and greatest product. But from a tactical standpoint, just use wetting agents as wetting agents and figure out which one works for you. And I can tell you from experience, anecdotal at best, is that what works at one place and one site may not work the exact same at another site, especially on native soil. The thing to take with a grain of salt here is that this is all done on sand-based greens. And there's a lot of, conflation of data, right, that says that they do or don't work on native soil. But the point of this matter is, and the one thing I want to bring up is that, one, they all behave the same. So just work with one and try and see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, move on to the next one. But the second thing is the narrative behind products, guys. And Matt, you just made a video on this last week. The narrative behind products, how much of that sells versus the actual data and what research tells us or what science in general tells us about these products. And moreover, to the point that, okay, hey, science is never finished, right? It's always going to continue to get better. But we're not seeing any conclusivity in data in terms of some of the things that are being spouted off upon, especially in the lawn care space, about, hey, these work for sure because they work. It's a dangerous spot to go down. You got to have a narrative behind the product to sell it.
It's hilarious because, like, for instance, and I promise I'm not shitting on Florentine. I would say Florentine has probably one of the most well-known in the golf space, well-known, like how many people do you know that are superintendents that buy Florentine because of its reputation?
A lot.
A lot. And for instance, when we look at the retainers here, right, and we're looking at the trial versus penetrance versus retainers, and we have an untreated control check here. Retain was undoubtedly as bad. It was worse than doing nothing. It literally was worse than doing nothing. And this is the most, I would say, well-known, trusted manufacturer that's out there. And it is bonkers to see that kind of result from it. I'm not going to lie. Like, it almost nauseates me. Then the other thing that we go down and we see is they do this 2021 wetting active ingredient trial, and the poloxamer category, which is basically just a co-block polymer, testing between those. And, we've got a limited number of active ingredients that are primarily used, right? And what's I would say has the highest degree of accepted efficacy would be block polymers in different forms and fashions, right? And so they tested a bunch of them, and you can see that there is some variability between them. The commercial standard, which would be Revolution by Aquatrols, is like a standard go-to good one, right? Like, I don't think there's anybody that would say Revolution is a bad wetting agent. It is the data that I've seen from it is all inherently good, right? And it may not be great. It can cause some phytotoxicity issues if applied at the wrong time or the wrong rate, or even if you do nothing wrong at all, just due to the nature of applying these types of surfactants, right? That it just can cause some phytotoxicity issues. So it's not perfect by any stretch of means of the imagination, but using that as a standard and then comparing off of it, it's like, yeah, we're seeing some mildly statistically significant improvement. However, like, you may have a one-off that is actually doing quite significantly well, at least for a duration of the year as compared to it, right? And I think the large part of this is that there's so much right now in the space of wetting agents that is fucking unknown. Here they test block copolymers, but there's also non-ionic surfactants. There's variations of block polymers, and this is where you're talking about the hydrophile to hydrophobe ratio, and then and what they didn't look at here is like, well, what if you combine different ones, right? What if you're combining penetrants and retainers? What if you're combining block polymers with non-ionics? What if you're using block polymers versus block copolymers? And a lot of that starts to elicit different responses too. And I want to couple that back to exactly what you said, DeMay, is that without a doubt, for the most part, and I'm shocked that, really this shook everything I was going to say about it. Thank you, Florentine, for fucking up my words on this. But for the most part, it's accepted that wetting agents are going to be effective in some form or fashion, and it's then dialing in which one is going to work specific for your scenario. And again, other things can be done with this, right? You can add acids to it if you have high carbonate soils. You may have a buffering agent. It may be a high pH polymer for a low a high acidity soil, right? And there's just so many different things we can do with it that it comes down to you investing the time and research into it to figure out which one works for you. We could just use as the commercial standard, like in this instance, as a control, is that yes, they're effective. However, that means now the real work begins of testing, spending the money, trialing in your own form or fashion with control plots to figure out which one is
Yep.
actually the most efficacious for you.
And that's the thing. I think the biggest thing I can tell you to figure out what works and what doesn't is as far as what you're picking. I think that this study, maybe 5 or so years ago, 10 years ago, you might have been like, well, I don't know what I pick, a retainer, a penetrant. What do I need? I have clay soil, so I'm going to pick a penetrant. That's going to help me get water down in there, all this other stuff, right? And I think that there's a little bit of validity in certain ways that those behave, but you need to be careful. So the bottom line is
I have used a penetrant before, and let me tell you, I could not keep the surface wet at all to save my life. Not at all. Could not keep it wet to save my life. Sand-based grown medium.
It's over.
And, to the point that it caused way more problems than it solved any problem at all whatsoever. Like, it was a disaster. It was a fucking disaster of a problem, right? So, again, this isn't the end-all, be-all. This is the starting point for you to start figuring out what works and what doesn't.
100%.
Because you may think you need a penetrant, but then you just created a whole host of fuck you problems.
Yep.
Or it doesn't matter.
Because
it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, or in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't make that much of a difference other than a small reduction in soil surface tension, reduction of runoff or roll-off, and in fact, ability of your water to penetrate into the thatch layer and then actually get into the grass. So, but, Ryan, you are right. I've heard of all kinds of wild claims, and the one that caught my attention and I immediately called bullshit on is I had somebody trying to sell me Lesco Moisture Manager at one point in time.
Oh man, that's Hydrotain. That's their version of Hydrotain. Private label.
But anyway, you know what my answer to them was?
Stuck on my balls. Oh, I don't know. I could see Ray saying that in a business meeting.
No, I told them, you know what? Piss off. I'd rather put the time and money into optimizing the irrigation system.
Truth. You're going to get a lot more. Yeah.
I'll say this, that I have done large seeding jobs with it and had degrees of success with it too. So, I don't want to take this as an opportunity to just shit on every fucking wedding agent.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not. No, I think the point here is a couple of things. One, that they behave very similarly, regardless of how they're marketed. Number one. Number two, that in a sand-based system, they're all pretty even, right, in terms of how they perform, right, at different and varying depths, right, of the profile, right. Moreover, though, in native soil, I think what you're going to find is greater degrees of variability in terms of how they perform, and what might work for Aldo in Southern California might not work for Kenny Cooper in suburban Chicago, right? And so those are the things that you have to figure out and find out on your own. And the way to do that is to spray those and then leave yourself a check plot, right? Leave an untreated check and see what the difference is. And the other thing too, the last thing I'll say is this, is that people say, oh, it's going to reduce water, it's going to do this. All it's going to do, right, and especially in native soil, is even out your dry down, right? So that your dry spots, and you're going to have dry spots, are going to dry down a little more slowly than they would have otherwise, right? And making things a little bit more even in terms of how they look in terms of moisture stress. So take that for what it's worth. And yeah.
An Oxford company is aiming to cut carbon by using what to build homes? Because the last time I Googled this, anytime you Google lawns in America, it's colonialism, it's racist, it's you're destroying the environment, you're destroying lives, you're starving people in Sri Lanka because of it, and it turns out it was all a bunch of bullshit designed to make whoever wants to buy into it and get angry and point at people like us and say, and some master gardener in North Carolina is going to call in and use a couple of homophobic slurs so they can report our video and attempt to get us kicked off of YouTube. Right, Brian Whalen? That's exactly what you did, you piece of shit. Anyway, here, and this company Planted is taking aim at the construction and building materials industry by building homes out of grass. They're building these panels made of grass rather than wood. And their first project here is converting an old tobacco facility into an 80,000 square foot commercial scale production line using these grass growing panels here. And they're going to capture the carbon into these panels, right? Because of photosynthesis and all that fun stuff. And the whole reason, you can read it here and take a look at it. It's written with a bunch of puns and it's not funny at all, but good on them for attempting it, I guess. But again, I just want to point out here that, when it fits the narrative of finding a boogeyman to point and shit on, they'll use grass as an excuse. When it fits the narrative of being the greatest thing that's happened is going to save the planet, then they'll point at grass and then say it's fertilizer and pesticides that are killing people. And then when they can't do that, I don't know where they'll go for next. They'll start saying that, well, eating meat is what's killing people or whatever else. It's all designed to scare us and shit on us and anyway. Just remember, everything that you read out there, there's an alternative side to it. It was like my dad always told me, there's my story, there's your story, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. And this is another example of it. And fuck everyone who wants to point at the grass jockeys and say we're assholes. Who you need to be pointing at is pointing at Brian Whalen, the master gardener, piece of fucking shit in North Carolina. Leave us alone.
All right, listen. All right, so J-Pink, do we have any mail?
You've got mail.
We fucking do. Wasn't that the greatest thing ever? You dial in the modem, you'd hear all that shit, from the modem. Then boom. Yeah. That was actually the sound of the naked old man that was trying to pay you that one time. That was not.
It was. That was the sound of his gout in his elbow as he was furiously going after himself.
Oh dear.
We have
Christ. That was
Evie,
hard.
who wrote in and said, what would a watering schedule look like with MP rotators or similar system that puts out 0.4 inches per hour precipitation rate? How many days a week and for how long? Or alternatively, how much ET replacement? Cool season.
Oh.
All
right. You want to go first, Ray, or you want me to go first?
Okay. What I normally suggest that people do with an MP rotator type system is plan on making that irrigation system depending on your soil type now. If you have a more loamy, silty, more clay type soil, you can consider dropping down about a half an inch of water total per irrigation event and seeing how long that takes you before you dry down again and you see signs of water stress or wilt. If somebody's on more sand-based soil or more gravelly soil, then I suggest they go to as little as 1/3 to 1/4 of an inch of water per irrigation event and time that accordingly. And on a more sandy soil, I see irrigation as often as every other day. But on a more finely textured soil, less gravel, less sand in it, then I'm thinking I try to apply enough water every 4 to 3 days. And that's just a general off the top of my head, so I don't fry anybody's lawn type of a thing. I'm sure Ryan DeMay has a more precise research-backed answer.
No bullshit, Ray. I mean, listen, I just actually did an hour-long podcast with Tyler Carr from Ohio State on this particular topic. It'll come out here sometime this week, and the time we have right now is not nearly enough to go through this answer. But I will say very succinctly that what you just said, I think is on point. I think the determination of how much water you put down should be based on some type of factor. So at the very basic level is just visual, right? So if I see, I'm going to irrigate to a certain level, right? So if he knows that it's a 0.4 inch per hour precipitation rate, go ahead and irrigate for an hour and then watch it dry down. See how long it takes until you induce wilt, and understand that that's going to be predicated by ambient air temperature. It's going to be predicated by wind. It's going to be predicated by solar energy, right? And it's also going to be predicated by relative humidity. So think about those four factors, how they interplay. And I don't have time to talk about how they do and why they do, but take that all into account. And then if you want to use ET, those are the four factors that go into ET. So if you want to use a more quantifiable metric, which EV is he's a finance guy, he's a numbers guy. So if you want to use ET as a reference, right? If you replace somewhere between 60 and 80%, and I'm not going to tell you hard and fast that it needs to be 60 or it needs to be 80, but somewhere between 60 and 80%, you're going to have a pretty good lawn. You do not need to replace ET 1 for 1. So again, we could do a whole show on this. It's a really, really interesting topic, inputs, outputs of a system of turf grass, and that every system is not the same. So all that being said, if you run it for an hour, go look at it 3 or 4 days later, see how bad it looks. And if it's getting dry, well, you know how to make it wet again.
Absolutely.
With that said, we are going to call this episode to an end. We were going to
wait.
Oh, wait.
I want to give a toast real quick. Listen.
Oh, okay.
As we end the show here, I just want to say it was nice to spend time with all of our friends here. It was nice to have people here that are of like mind, not necessarily agreeing on everything, right? But of like mind that they want to pursue turf grass, and that's what they're here for. Not to sit there and spew epithets, not to sit there and spew their hate and everything like that. So listen, Brian Whalen, Goldsboro, buddy. Oh, let me turn it. I love you, motherfucker. Kiss my fucking ass and go fuck yourself. Bye.
Individual liberty is a fucking gift, you cocksucking piece of shit. Fuck you. This guy's a fucking weirdo. Yeah!